Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are back live with our friend Monica Garnett. She's here from beautiful, sunny California, but licensed in other places. She's a therapist and founder of her own company. It's garnettcounseling.com, GARNETT counseling.com. Where could you help our listeners? Would you mind mentioning?
Sure. As far as individual counseling, I provide individual counseling, couples counseling, family, and then we also have life coaching. So,
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to
yeah.
have you back here. Tell us a little bit about your practice and the types of people you can help, and then we'll go into our little core belief session and
Yes.
conversation for the day.
Sure. So really, we primarily work with those who are 14 and over,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have experience working with veterans as well as substance abuse. And so, yeah, just going back to the individual, couples, and family therapy. Yeah,
Oh.
pretty cool.
And you practice in what states as a life coach? Anywhere, but for the mental health counseling, would you mind just sharing specifically?
Sure, I should have thought of that.
It's
Um,
okay.
Virginia, California, Illinois, Nevada, and New Jersey.
Perfect. All right. So today you want to address some negative core beliefs. What are
Oh,
core
yeah.
beliefs? Let's start there.
So core beliefs, it's funny because a lot of my clients, uh, a lot of their concerns stem from their core beliefs. And so I like to start the session with, what are core beliefs? And everyone
Mm-hmm.
says, oh, it's what I believe in everything. It's my overall belief. And a lot of times, kind of, sort of, core beliefs are just they're assumptions in our beliefs about ourselves, other people, and the world around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times they stem from just our experiences, um, our experiences, people that we know, people we grew up with,
Mm-hmm.
our background and our location. And so excuse me, they can be positive, or they can be, I don't use the word negative that much. I'll call them unhealthy or
Okay.
maladaptive. And so the maladaptive and the unhealthy core beliefs are the ones that usually, when I hear them pop up, I just say, "Up, here we go. There's a core belief. Let's address that." Because the positive ones, we absolutely want to keep those that help us, that keep us motivated, keep us grounded, and keep us going forward. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so, where they, as far as where they come from, going back to where they come from, sometimes I think with core beliefs, they come when we're in a vulnerable place. And that can be in childhood. That could be that can be when a situation occurs, something traumatic, or something that even is perceived to be traumatic. And so, I'll give an example. I knew someone who said they wanted to look like their mom. I may have talked about this before, but they wanted to look like their mom. They were 4. And, that was the goal. I want to look like my mommy. I want to look like my mommy. My mommy is so pretty. And they said, "Oh, well, Monica," I'm using myself as an example, "you look just like your dad." And it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't look like my mommy. So I look like my dad. So what does that say about me?
Mm-hmm.
And so as time went on, so it planted the seed of that core belief. And being that the vulnerable place was not so much a traumatic experience as it was childhood.
No.
And so the belief came, which is, I'm ugly.
Oh.
Yeah. It's amazing how they just, it's a little seed sometimes that's planted. And that little seed can create a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And from that narrative, it's not so much what I think or what I feel, it's what I know. And I think that's why it's so important to get to, I love to address what you think and what everyone feels, absolutely, because it's valid. But when that core belief is there, it's necessary to get there, because a lot of times the maladaptive core beliefs are not based on fact, but that person is living in it
Mm-hmm.
and repeating it because it's a belief. It's what they know, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. My son is 6, and his little friend who he had a play date with the other day, who they just love each other. They're so much fun. She's so sweet. But she sent a video the other night saying, "Jackson, I can't wait to see you. I want to do my makeup. I want to look pretty for you. I'm gonna do my makeup." And so like then I talked to her mom about that. I said, "Isn't that crazy? At age 6, she thinks like she's gonna look better with makeup." I said, "Where does it come from?" She's like, "It's me." She's like, "I talk about how I only wear makeup and I have to wear makeup." And she's like, "Do you know what else I noticed the other day?" She said, my 6-year-old was looking in the mirror, says, "Mom," like touching her, "I'm fat, I'm fat." And she's like,
Yeah.
I've been, she's like, "I keep saying that." She's like, "And now my daughter's picked up on it. Mom, I'm fat, I'm fat, and now I need to wear makeup." It's like you don't realize what you put out there. Yeah, with children especially. And
Oh
this is
yeah,
where these belief, you know, little seeds are planted, as you say.
absolutely. And it's funny because we don't think about it, especially as adults. We're going about our day and going about our way and just figuring it out, you know. And people are just absorbing that information. And a lot of times when that narrative occurs, it's not so much, it's about, I am, I am worthless, you know, I am unlovable, I'm ugly, or the world around us, the world is scary, people are mean, you know, or the people that we know, that person that means me ill intent. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times there's an example I love to use, and it's based on a worksheet that I use with my clients. Excuse me. And it's same topic, challenging the core beliefs. And so the idea is, before the core belief started, before that narrative was created, I'm wearing a certain shade of glasses or sunglasses. So I'll call them pink colored or rose colored glasses. So I see the world in a different way. But once that narrative is planted, then the glasses can become maybe green tinted or yellow tinted. So everything I see, including what I'm seeing in the mirror, is from that tint. And so it can be pretty interesting, even with traumatic experiences. I've dealt with clients who've had stalkers, domestic violence, and PTSD, military. And so their core belief goes from "I am this person" to I see everything through these other color glasses, these yellow tinted or these green tinted glasses. So whereas the stalker, it could be, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I did something wrong. And then it also goes to, the world is unsafe, you know. And so in dealing with that, I like to get to the root of the problem first, identifying what that core belief is, and it's it's I tell my clients it's meaningful work, but I also tell them it's not always the easiest work,
Mm-hmm.
because really what I'm telling them is to hold a mirror up to themselves and tell me what they see. I personally, or someone else, may see the mirror being not correct or incorrect, or even quote unquote like a clown mirror or a circus or a carnival mirror. But hold that up to yourself and tell me what you see. And that's one of the harder parts, you know. And so once they do that, once we're able to identify that, then I like to go to, where did this come from? And sometimes what we do is a timeline. Where did this come from? What's the earliest memory I have of this belief? We just do a little bit of digging, or sometimes a lot of bit of digging. And then I like to address what feelings and thoughts are related to it. So I actually have them do a log, complete a log, because I want to see, where's this popping up in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we're thinking things, they're just when we're thinking them in our head, there's no formation, and our thoughts go so fast, and our emotions are fast. And so sometimes we're not able to catch them. And so, and identifying where my thoughts are, what am I feeling? Because they have a marriage as well. A lot of times, if something happens, whether it's an event, a triggering event, it could be a memory, it could be a smell, it could be anything. My thoughts and my feelings are right there. And a lot of times they'll go back to that core belief.
Mm.
And so, and then identifying also, what is the triggering event? We want to know that too. And then another thing, people sometimes look at me like, are you sure about this? And I say, yes. How do you feel in your body? Because our body sometimes tells us, hey, I'm uncomfortable here. I'm not feeling good about this,
Mhm.
And so after we complete that process, then we prioritize, you know, where are the thoughts and the feelings? Where am I most triggered? And then we talk about how to address the trigger. And then my favorite part is we hold the mirror back again. And what's the truth? What are the facts? We understand that their core belief, that maladaptive core belief, is not factual.
Mhm.
What is the facts? What are the facts? And we work through that. And that's and it's funny to me because that's one of the hardest parts as well. It's the beginning of holding that mirror and then holding the mirror of truth. Because sometimes it's some clients have been so afraid to see what's on the other side. But once they see what's on the other side, they're like, oh my gosh, I thought like that. Yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. We work through it. And like I said, they pop up everywhere.
I was going to say, give me some of the examples, and how do we know the I am the.
That listening to people. When I'm in and when I have marriage or couples therapy, there's sometimes I will hear one spouse say, their views, and then the other is based upon whatever their views, such as I don't feel safe in talking to you. Um, you never understand. No one ever understands me.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, okay, let's come back a little bit. Is this more about the marriage or is this more about you? And sometimes it's not fun. Those are not fun conversations, but I think they're necessary because if they're not addressed, then they'll continue to spin in that cycle. And then their spouse will spin in that cycle with them. They'll be on that emotional roller coaster. And it's just like, okay, where do we go from here? Because we're both spinning now. And neither know why they're spinning. So there have been times too where when I hear it, I'll say, okay, let's take a step back and let's look where this is coming from and address it and then come back to the table. So it's very interesting. I know one core belief, I was talking to my sister, my nephew is 18. Oh my gosh. And so we've been talking about, because she's very diligent about the information that he has received, especially about himself and about the world around him. And we were just like, I can't find a negative core belief. He's just like, I'm just so fine. I'm so fine. If he hears this, he's probably going to kill me.
Ah, really? Yes.
Yeah,
No.
but he is so into himself. And it's just like, you know, is this healthy? Is it not healthy? And I think the therapist in me is always looking and assessing. And I said, you know what? It doesn't sound like it's unhealthy. It's not interrupting the way he engages with his friends and school and his goals and the world around him. So I'll just leave it be, but I'll just watch.
Mm-hmm. Well, you say people that talk about and say I am statements, right? People are, the world is a certain way.
Oh,
That's an
absolutely.
example of we have our core beliefs. But don't we
Absolutely.
all have them? We have to, right?
Yes. Yes. It's funny. This was a few years ago. My mother was saying, because I'm always going, always going. She said, you never sit down. Why don't you ever sit down? And I thought about it and I said, well, this is probably not the best conversation, but because of you.
She was the same way.
Yeah. And then and as a teenager, she was the same way. And then as a teenager, I picked that up. And some of that was based upon my experience because I was in school, I was in different
Mm-hmm.
clubs, I was tutoring, I was, and I was also working
Mm-hmm.
and babysitting. I was always busy. And I said, I've never really learned how to sit down and just do it. And so the core belief, upon my thought, the core belief came, if I'm not busy, then I'm not productive.
Mm-hmm.
It sneaks in there and we don't realize it. But again, a lot of it is how do I identify this? What is the other person saying? Just listening to the conversation and the communication, even sometimes the communication with yourself. You know, when I think of, if I start to see maybe a certain group a certain way, like my favorite, I know someone and she's always saying this generation today. I
Uh,
said, wait a minute. And so it's this generation today is inconsistent, inconsiderate. They're all these things, and they're based upon her beliefs, and it's targeted towards a certain group.
mhm.
But we talk about that. You know what? Hey, we were that generation before, just another year and just a different decade.
So
You know.
true. Ah,
And so how do we address that? How can this become healthy? Because core beliefs can be maladaptive. Core beliefs are similar to limiting beliefs. They get in the way of me going forward.
so core beliefs are limiting beliefs, or they could
They
be,
can
I
be
guess.
limiting. Oh,
Okay.
they can be limiting. The negative ones, or the
Mhm.
maladaptive, the unhealthy ones, they can be very limiting. Like going back to the person who says this generation today, um, she may not engage with a person from a younger generation. If she had, let's say she's a business owner, she may not hire someone from that generation, and just missing on the opportunity of having someone who was great work for her just based upon those beliefs. So
Mhm.
they're actually getting in the way. The person, as far as I'm ugly, they may not engage with people in a certain way.
Mhm.
They may not leave the house. They may not go to different events because of the glasses, the tint of the glasses that they have on at that time. So it can be pretty deep sometimes,
Wow.
you know, which is why I kind of like to dig in, and I just let them know. I say, okay, I have my trusty pen. It's a shovel. We're going a little deep. Let me
That's
know if it's uncomfortable. But yeah.
And what else is on our list? I just lost my reception, so I can't find
Oh
our notes.
no.
It's okay, it'll come back up again. But what else was next on our sheet for to talk about? My goodness. That's
Actually, I think I went through
you
it.
went
Oh,
through.
you know what? I did not hit one thing. Sometimes they pop up as mental health situations,
Uh-huh.
such as depression, anxiety, self-esteem. Because when you think about the narrative that's been planted, if it's to view the world is scary.
Mm-hmm.
A person may develop, or anxiety may come from, well, the world is scary. Now I'm afraid to venture out.
Mm-hmm.
The world is scary, so I may be afraid to address certain people,
Yep.
or I
For
may
sure.
worry about certain things.
So
And then,
it
mhm.
oh oh no, go
No,
ahead,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
you're
No.
fine.
No, how do we fix this? What's the cognitive restructuring and all that you
Well,
have?
that just goes back to what I was talking about, as far as, excuse me, one, identifying. And then the cognitive restructuring is disrupting the irrational patterns. So that's the part where, after I identify the core beliefs, then looking at, okay, where do they come from? And then how do they show up in my thoughts and my feelings? And then prioritizing them. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, okay, so what are some of the things that we can say? What are some of the oh, I'm losing my word, and it's gone. I love it. I love my memory. But how can we think about it in a different way? How can we address it in a different way? And a lot of times I look at that as, what are the facts? If I'm afraid to step outside. Well, let's look at that. You're afraid to step outside because of A, B, or C. Well, if you were to step outside because of A, B, or C, would that really happen? And a lot of times they think, oh, you know what? No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what would happen if you were to step outside? What were to happen if you were to talk to a person you haven't spoken to?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes because what it's doing, it's restructuring, but it's also, and finding the facts is such a positive tool because, again, the core belief is not factual. And a lot of times the thoughts and the feelings associated are not factual. They're valid. But they're not based on truth. And so in that restructuring, what is the truth? What are the facts? Okay, let's integrate it into your life. Let's work those steps and find out what it really is. And so, and it's interesting because I had one client, actually I've had a few clients who successfully discharged because they were able to find their core beliefs and work through them. But then when something happens, when there's things that are difficult that occur, because someone told me that life continues to life. And so in this situation, life was continuing to life. And they would thought, oh my goodness, I'm right back to where I started from. And they said, okay, let's look at that. And they said, wait a minute, I'm not. And they were able to work through those patterns, those disrupt that pattern of thinking. And so a lot of times I tell my clients too, this is practice and putting that in place, and to replace the way you're thinking with the other way. Because really what you're doing is you're putting on a different shade of glasses. They may not be rose colored again, but they may be a certain shade of pink, a different shade of pink.
Oh,
so yeah, I like what I do.
clearly. Oh my goodness. Now you're watching your nephew. You said he's 18. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's amazing. I have two other nephews. 8. They're going to be mad if I don't get their ages correct.
I do ages. I can't do ages and dates for anyone. Excuse me. I dropped my phone with your notes on it. But I can never remember dates. It's like, and I don't know how people do. I don't. I can't.
Yeah.
About how old?
They're about 8 and 6. I think so. Yeah. But it's funny you say that. Just kind of a sidebar with my nephew. 18, first grandchild, first nephew in the family. You would think that I would keep the dates because he was my partner for the longest time. And every year, is he born on the 8th or the 11th?
I can't.
Which day?
I ask my sister every year, how old, what grade, what year? Yep.
Yeah. It's funny how that happens. Oh yeah. But it makes me think, kind of segueing back to this, just where your mind puts things. For me, it's not that he's not important, but for me, it's kind of in the back of my mind. Whereas how he's doing, what he's thinking, and what he's going through is in the forefront. And it's funny, my sister and I, we have a little back and forth sometimes because based on our core beliefs. Because the interesting part is I'm the oldest. She's 7 years behind me. She's the middle. And a lot of times our beliefs function based upon experiences, but family background too. And so being that I'm the oldest, I'm the one that takes charge. I'm the one who likes to be in charge, but that's another story. And then there's such a distance between our ages. Our parents, I don't know if they became more comfortable when she came around, but the way we see things and the way we're raised, totally different. And so sometimes I'll say, okay, well, this is the way we were raised, so this is the way it should be. She's like, well, I wasn't raised that way. That wasn't my experience. And even if that was the case, I don't want that to be my experience. And so those core beliefs, they show up. They do show up. They show up in a lot of different ways. But I think the biggest thing is to identify, are these healthy or are they unhealthy? Even with our disagreements, we're able to identify, because we have such a difference in opinion, it's still not getting in the way. So I would say they're healthy, because I can see the way I grew up, the healthy ways that I see that I grew up, they work for me. except for when I have those negative core beliefs, like with my mother, and working too much. If I'm not productive, if I'm not doing something, I'm not productive. Whereas my sister is just like, oh yeah, I'm taking breaks. And I'm like, how do you do
Right.
that? And she's just like, I'm
Yeah.
taking breaks.
I don't, I'm like you. I run around, I stand, I don't sit. Even when I make kids dinner, I don't sit with them. I'm running on the go. And my mom was the same way. And
Yeah.
then I remember my sister, when she had kids, oh yeah, I'm taking a nap. I'm like, how do you take a nap? You have time to relax and sit down. I cannot. I can't. It's not in my blood. It's not in my DNA.
No. Mm-mm. But a lot of times it's based on that. So even in doing the work myself, I have to think of the cognitive restructuring, but I know where it came from. I know what the belief is. I know where it came from. I know how it shows up. It shows up in every part of my life.
Yeah.
And so what is the truth? Well, Monica, you know what? It's not going to hurt you to sit down for 5 minutes. Okay. Like I have this thing called 5 Pockets of Peace, where I just give myself a few minutes just to step away, to breathe a little bit, and to meet me and I encourage other people to do it too, to meet themselves where they are. Because for me to actually take a 30-minute walk, my brain is like, oh my gosh, am I being productive? I have this to do. So by giving myself that little bit of time, I'm able to function. And then recognizing, you know what? I feel better after that little time. Let's see if I can add more time to it. And more time. So even with the restructuring, it's not just jumping in the deep end of the pool. Yeah. I'm wading in. I'm walking into it. So
well, how do we reach out to you? Would you mind sharing the best form of contact, please?
Sure. GarnettCounselingServices.com, and it is GarnettCounseling.com, and my number is 888-427-6006, and I am on Facebook under Garnett Counseling.
And that's Garnett Counseling. Got it? Okay, good.
Absolutely. Some people get it mixed up with 1 T, but it's 2 T's. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica. Pleasure having you here, and looking forward to the next time we speak.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.